My name's Joe Ward. We're here in the Hub Fireplace Lounge. We're picking people off the streets. We're trying to get a behind-the-scenes look, brutal, honest opinions of what D Hall food was like on their Accepted Students Day versus what it is now. My name's Joe. We're here on Plymouth State campus with
Caitlin.
Ryan, Joe. I'm here with
Zach.
My name is Eric. Nice to meet you.
with Ethan. Ethan just got done playing some basketball, and it looks like he's going to go home, take a shower, and then go to D Hall.
I'm Jolyn.
John, nice to meet you, Joe.
Nice to meet you, Joe.
Aiden?
Yeah.
Aiden, okay.
Yeah. I don't mind D Hall that much, but I feel like they don't put enough cheese on their pizza.
Thinking back to your freshman year, your first week here, maybe your Accepted Students Day, maybe orientation, what did you think about the Prospect Dining Hall food?
I thought it was pretty good. Like, the pizza was really good. The staff was really friendly and everything, yeah.
The food for Accepted Students Day is really good, always very quality. They have basically every station running perfectly with the best food we can have, like Panther Bowls usually, and all of the desserts are excellent. They had warm cookies and everything.
Well, it was one of the first colleges I went to, so just the fact that there was just a big assortment of food in a college cafeteria was just kind of a very cool aspect. Yeah, I thought it was actually one of the better ones that I went to.
If you had to rate that food on a scale of like 1 to 9, we'll say, what would you rate that as?
On a scale of 1 to 9, probably a 9.
I'd give it an 8.
I would say about an 8.
7, I would say.
So maybe thinking a month down the road, maybe even a couple weeks or even a couple days, how would you rate the Prospect Dining Hall food?
Most of it is pretty okay. Like, the pizza's usually fine. There are some worrying things, like the chicken at the grill is usually, it seems a little undercooked most of the time.
Chicken was always pink in the middle. Sometimes you got the vegetables were either undercooked or overcooked, never actually edible.
The burgers and the pizza were pretty dreadful. I will say recently they've improved a lot with the pasta station. There's a guy named Tony who works at the pasta station now. He is my man. And I had probably the best pasta that I've had in a really long time just this afternoon when I was eating dinner. Yeah. Everything else is pretty bad though. I'll admit that.
Okay, so how would you rate, after a month and after you're used to it, how would you rate that experience on a scale of 1 to 9?
About a 6.
Honestly, now it's probably like a 4.
Down in like the 4 level, especially in between like the major hours of eating.
Just went down to like a 2, I think.
Are you familiar with the framing theory or being framed at all?
I feel like I'm not really knowledgeable about it.
So the framing theory is, sometimes media portrays news in a certain way to make the audience think a certain way. Okay. So in this situation, the what was it, I know, not the news, the media. So with the media being D Hall and the news being the food, do you think from Accepted Students Day till now, do you think you've been framed as far as the food quality?
I think it varies, but yeah, I'd say that can kind of fit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Frame for sure.
Do you feel like you've been framed?
Yeah, I'd say from Panther days to now. It's why I don't go to D Hall as much. I go buy Walmart and.
They suckered us in and got us here.
Suckered us in.
I think that they're just kind of luring kids in, putting the best foot forwards. They always show them Mary Lion too, but once you get here, they don't care about you as much.
Do you feel that, after that point, maybe you've been framed?
Okay, yeah, I guess I kind of see that. Yeah, I feel like I would.
Oh, totally.
Do you feel like with both your res hall experience and your dining hall experience, do you think you've been
A little bit. I get what they're trying to do, but they should definitely be more honest about it.
So the quality definitely decreased since Accepted Students Day?
Oh, for sure.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. They just got us in the door, and then once we pay, it doesn't matter anymore, man. We're here.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. The framing theory does kind of fit. Because on days where they're trying to show off, you can tell that they're trying a little bit harder. The main line has better food on it, stuff like that. I would agree with that.
Sometimes the news or sometimes the media, will persuade you, tell you some type of news, make you think a different way. Relating that to your D Hall experience, D Hall being the media and the news being the food, how would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 9?
I know a lot of people who just won't go to D Hall at all because they've had such a bad time.
So we are here on Plymouth State campus interviewing some Plymouth State students. What's your name?
Brennan.
Brennan, nice to meet you. Joe. So we're kind of just asking about your general D Hall
Actually, man, I think I'm gonna have to cancel. I'm gonna head to D Hall instead. I'm sorry, man. I'm hungry. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Think back to Panther days, or even Accepted Students Day, if you can remember that. Specifically, think about the food you had on those days. It probably wasn't anything life-changing, but it still tasted pretty good, right? You probably thought that PSU's dining hall offered the same moderately tasty food on a daily basis as it did for catering events, and that's exactly what D Hall wants you to believe. One look at their Facebook page reveals dozens of colorful photos of appetizing, even healthy-looking meals, all of which fall in line with a narrative they spin at their catering events. But, of course, any student with functioning taste buds will tell you that none of this is true. Complaints about food quality and variety run rampant among the student body, to the point where some student-run social media accounts even dedicate their stories to exposing the lackluster quality of D Hall's offerings. And PSU is not the only guilty party here. For quite some time now, a common criticism of the fast food industry highlights the disparity between the glamorous food presented in advertisements versus the food that customers actually receive on their trays. In both cases, the message senders are packaging their information and presenting it in a recontextualized manner to provoke a specific response from their audiences, be it through painting their food to make it look more appetizing, or only posting photos of healthy foods or foods specific to catering events. By cherry-picking or touching up certain elements of their messages to present to the audiences, these two entities are demonstrating variations of the framing theory. It is important to note that framing theory was devised specifically to be applied to the news media, but we feel as though its basic principles can apply to advertising media and is analogous to the way D Hall selectively presents its food to incoming students. Originally devised by Irving Goffman in his 1972 essay Frame Analysis, this theory asserts that the media, specifically the news, will select an event to report, determine its importance, and then strategically place it in a specific contrived context by highlighting, omitting, or adding certain pieces of information. This then affects how the audience perceives the issue being reported, and influences their behaviors and opinions. Framing is often seen as a close relative to agenda-setting theory, in which the media assign levels of importance to certain topics reported in the news. In both theories, journalists, news corporations, and other gatekeepers select which information is worth reporting, but framing takes it a step further, in that journalists also intermix their own opinions, information, and biases into the report. Alternatively, a news story can be completely isolated from its original context so as to be viewed differently by the intended audience. In The Art of Framing, theorists Gail Fairhurst and Robert Sarr identify 7 different methods in which a story can be framed, through the use of metaphors, the use of entertaining stories, appeals to traditions, repetition of slogans and catchphrases, references to artifacts or items that may hold power among the intended audience, by defining an issue by what it is not instead of what it is, also called contrast, or adding a personal value judgment or spin. Regardless of the method being used, there are 2 primary context types in which stories can be framed by the media: episodic and thematic. A news media outlet that uses an episodic framing strategy will present each one of its stories in a vacuum, even if the issues being reported on result from larger, more complicated factors. Such stories will focus on individuals' actions or behaviors without linking them to larger social motivations, or they'll at least downplay the importance of such motivations in the report. This is done to keep audiences from realizing the larger social elements at play, and to ensure that they take the story at face value. Alternatively, a thematic framing strategy involves the linkage of similar stories, or the broadening of one story to include coverage of potential social circumstances that may have caused it. Similar cases are connected together with common themes and elements, so as to better illustrate the more complicated factors operating behind the scenes. It is important to know that frames do not simply exist as tools for the news or advertising media to doctor or repackage their information. Everybody has their own personal frames or frameworks through which they interpret the information they receive. In psychology, these are sometimes referred to as schema. Goffman outlined 2 frameworks through which individuals process data: natural and social. He surmised that natural frameworks make up our understanding of our everyday surroundings and the events that occur within them, and that if we interpret events through our natural frameworks, we look at them at face value, in isolation. This is the type of framework that episodic framing strategies appeal to. Social frameworks are built on top of natural frames, and they are the means through which people attribute events to social motivations, such as others' goals, desires, interests, etc. For example, substance addiction, viewed solely through a natural framework, would result in the viewer thinking that each substance user was responsible for their own condition. If the viewer applied their social framework, they may then attribute the user's condition to larger socioeconomic disadvantages that could be affecting them. When someone is presented with information on a topic that clashes with their frame of said topic, or their worldview in general, they will either disregard the information or bend it in a certain way to make it fit their worldview, their frame. So really, it isn't just the media that twists information to force it into a frame, it's everybody. So the next time you see a group of excited incoming freshmen enjoying what they believe to be high-quality food from a high-quality, consistent provider, maybe let them know that they're really just buying into the image that D Hall wants to sell. It's an image that, once separated from the episodic frame of catering events and enthusiastic Facebook posts, quickly begins to fall apart.